I'm Howard Skillington on behalf of 40 Plus Stage Company, and I'm speaking with the company's executive producer, John Hohn. Hi, John.
Hi, Howard.
John, you retired from what profession?
Well, I had about 40 years in the financial services business, retiring in '07 from Merrill Lynch. I was a personal financial advisor at that time.
That doesn't sound very theatrical.
You'd be surprised.
At what point in life did you take an interest in theater?
Oh, gosh, I was interested in theater as a kid. The nuns would pick me out of the class and get me memorizing lines and on stage in different roles, and that was true in high school. The years during which I raised my family, of course, I was too busy, but my history here in Winston-Salem dates back to the 1980s when I got active with Little Theater. I was a charter member of Winston-Salem Theater Alliance and was on stage quite a bit during the 80s and the early 90s.
Had circumstances permitted when you were a young man, could you have imagined trying for careers in theater?
I didn't allow myself the luxury of the thought.
Uh,
My wife and I raised 5 children,
sure.
and it really just put it out of reach without any doubt.
So do I gather that 40 Plus is your brainchild?
Oh, no, no. But that's a great question. Gene Johnson, who has been a friend of mine, don't want to put that in the past tense, although it might sound like it. It's his idea. Gene and I have known one another for 35, 40 years. And he wanted to start it. And when he told me about it, I said, gosh, I'm retired. I'd like to throw in with you. And so we joined forces in 2016 and started working a couple of seasons together.
Gene, of course, has a prodigious experience in this area as a director and actually theatrical person. Was his hope when he brought you in that you might be more at the management end of things?
I guess it was more amorphous than that. It was just how do we find a place to store things? What do you think we should do next? I mean, it was just very ad hoc, which is really kind of where I operate best anyway. And I sort of grew into the position. He knew what my knowledge of theater was only as an audience member or on stage. I'd never done anything with production. I'd never done anything with lighting, sound, staging of any kind. So I had to kind of climb a learning curve.
So for a small company, you have to wear a lot of hats, don't you?
Well, that's changing gratefully. Yeah, certainly that was true. Very happy that Mark Pirolo, who is retired, taught for years at the School of the Arts and is a nationally recognized designer, has taken on the position of artistic director, which brings an awful lot of experience to bear there that certainly I didn't have. And Ed Simpson, who was the head of the drama department at High Point University and has a resume as long as your arm, is going to take over as production manager. So the logistics of getting things staged has also been delegated into more capable hands, and I'm really grateful.
Well, that's sounding good. So let's talk a little bit about the theatrical ecosystem in the Triad.
Okay.
Do you regard 40 Plus as being a Winston-Salem institution, or do you like to think of the market as bigger than that?
I I see it as a Winston-Salem, Forsyth County,
Mhm.
environs market.
So we're blessed with quite a lot of theater companies in this area.
We are indeed.
So when you and Gene first talked about it, what was your thinking? Did it seem to you that there was still a niche that was unfilled?
Well, we didn't have the luxury of market research. What we thought the niche that was unfilled was that there were older actors who simply were not being considered any longer. You'd see a 40-year-old made up and costumed as a 65-year-old on a play, whereas there might be a half a dozen 65-year-olds out in the community who would been able to fill the part happily. That was our thinking. But as time passed, we found that really wasn't a broad enough platform for us. And it turned out that as older actors did seek roles, they were pretty much given parts. That may not be true in auditioning for TV commercials and so forth, but that's the next level up on the ladder. That's not where we're operating.
So was it clear in your minds from the start that 40 was the cutoff, not only of the name of the company, but of the net you'd be casting for talent?
No, I mean, I wish it were. We thought about 50 plus, and then we realized we were probably cutting ourselves off. And so we lowered it to 40. And even at that, some of our first plays had younger people in it. And we found out very quickly that there were a lot of really talented younger people in the community who said, well, they don't want anybody our age. Well, we didn't want to swim upstream against that perception. So we had to start slowly undoing some of our early promotional efforts.
So your audience isn't being too picky about checking people's age for your cast.
No, we'll take a paid admission from anybody.
Is it hard to find shows that fit your criteria?
Well, see, that's this next area of focus. What we did in order to stay true to the title and our mission was to focus on plays that had themes of interest or challenge to people midlife and beyond, which became more the operative phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and their issues abound, empty nesting, divorce, premature death of a spouse, any number of things. So it really did open up the repertoire for a lot of choices for us. And we stay focused on that. So that's what an audience can expect from us going forward. And also in our outreach mission, we wanted to carry classes and performance opportunities into the community for older people. I mean, people over 60, 65, and we've done some work at Arbor Acres in Salem Town and through Shepherd Center, because a lot of the research by the gerontologists tell us that the performing arts, music, dance, and theater, but theater especially, does an awful lot to keep people emotionally, physically healthy. They've conducted studies where participants in theatrical productions and classes among the elderly actually visit their doctors less. They tend to be less depressed. There's evidence showing that it postpones the onset of dementia and other, loss of mental acuity. So we really stay very strongly in pursuit of that as one of our outreach goals.
That's not something that I have read about, but when you think of the mind as a neural network, what connects with more parts of a person's experience and presumably one's memory than theater?
Exactly. You have to call on your own life experiences to fill out a role and project a character out to an audience. And it involves all parts of the intellect, visceral, rational.
And then the audience connects it with all parts of their experience.
Hopefully, yeah.
What about the logistics of the theater now? It's easy for me to buy a ticket and sit there and just enjoy the show, but I have some inkling of how much goes into the preparation and the marketing and the gathering of the materials needed for it and the casting, and who does all that stuff?
Well, hopefully now the work will be divided. Gene and I did it together for the first 3 years. Last couple of seasons, it was whomever I could get to help me. And there have been plenty of people willing to come forward. Jim McKenney, for example, took over a show for us, did a great job. And Karen Robertson, Kevin Mundy, just different people filled in. We didn't have a permanent staff person taking care of these things. And you're right, the logistics are really much larger than most people know. Gene and I spent a long time looking for a venue. We finally decided that we would have to go with the Arts Council and their Mountcastle Black Box Theater down at the Haynes Center for the Arts. We have decided to keep our sets minimalistic, suggestive rather than concrete. And you can find audiences are very eager to buy in to just sets that have doorways, for example, and a few sticks of furniture. It doesn't have to be an elaborate, well-built architectural structure. Rounding up props and furniture has also been, a major issue. And we're really indebted to Furniture Emporium. They've been gracious with allowing us to take pieces right off their showroom floor and use them. So we've had a lot of help. And Arbor Acres has given us rehearsal space. People don't think about the need for space to rehearse, and they've come through and given us that. Dave Piner, having been on our board at one time, he ran Arbor Acres. He was the chief executive officer out there for a while.
So to design a show that can be taken to visit someplace like Arbor Acres, that has to be built into the concept from the start, doesn't it?
Pretty much. That's one of the major transitions, is coming out of the rehearsal space and going on stage with the, it all laid out and so forth. That's a major step in the rehearsal process.
And we audience members probably don't have much awareness of how much adjusting the cast has to make to different acoustics, different effect of the light in a different space, perhaps adjustments in the blocking. That all sounds pretty challenging.
Oh yeah, well, it is, and you're right. I don't think the audience is aware of it. Experienced people in theater grow to expect it. It's just part of getting on with the show, so to speak. So
now, how many seasons have you had under your belt so far?
Well, COVID just, brought our fourth season to an abrupt halt. So we got Levittown by Mark Palmieri, who's a Wake Forest grad.
That was a wonderful show.
I'm sorry?
That was a wonderful show.
Thank you. Thank you. We got that produced in February, and we're really pleased with it. And then all the news hit. So we had to postpone. We had shows planned for the rest of 2020 and 2021, and we're pushing them all back now, sort of 6 months at a time. In fact, I'm about ready to cancel the two shows we had scheduled for the first 6 months of 2021.
So in pushing those 6 months further away, what do you do in the meantime?
Well, we're trying to do some things online. We did a reading of one of the plays we wanted to present, Wendy Wasserstein's last play, Third, and that went very well. Nathan Ross Freeman has written a play called The Other Way Around, and it's going to star Corliss Sellers, who's a member of our board, as the lead female role, and that's going to go online and become available on demand November 21. The name of the show is The Other Way Around, and Nathan is the author. Nathan's been recognized for the fine work he's done with authoring action here in the city, and his own writing has been recognized over the last couple of decades as really memorable stuff to read.
This will be in the form of a reading rather than more of a staged production?
That's right. See, what people don't realize often is that you also have to keep the cast safe.
Sure.
So to go into production and have people drop their masks and the proximity restrictions have to be done away with, and so on and so forth, it's just too big a risk for a cast to take. So this will be a reading. Hopefully, it'll be brought to the point where it will not be obvious to a viewer that they have the script available. Technology allows you to put the script up right on side the camera on the computers, so that won't be encumbering, so to speak.
I remember the first time I ever attended a theatrical production in the form of a reading, and I'll confess that I was a bit skeptical of it at the time, and I was surprised at what a satisfying aesthetic experience it was. When the material's good, when the actors are talented, the illusion creates itself in your mind.
Yeah, Yeah, and it's been my experience too. Certain limitations for the actor being seated, of course, almost puts you in a position where physically you're restricted. See, I'm trying to gesture now, and you can't even see it. And as you can't gesture, some of us can't even talk without moving our hands. So it's limiting in ways people don't honestly realize. That calls for more energy when you do a reading. It calls for really projecting with face, voice, pauses, the whole repertoire of choices available to a performer.
Must also be a big adjustment for the director to be thinking in terms of the effect of what they're looking for presented in that fashion.
It is, I'm sure.
So how will this production work for your audience? How can they access it?
Well, we're still working that out, Howard. The technology is new to all of us. And a big thank you goes to Ray Mitchell with Media for You. He's one of our season sponsors and does this kind of work for us, including a lot of our graphics. And what we hope to be able to do is record it, just as you and I are recording this interview now, and then put it up so that people can take a link and go view it. We'll probably make that available. Well, we'll certainly make it available on the 40 Plus Stage website and probably also on Facebook so that people will have a couple of avenues to follow to get in to watch it and see it.
So can they visit your site and in effect buy a ticket?
Well, we can't buy a ticket, no. But we are going to ask people if they enjoyed the show, well, to make a donation. And they can make donations on our website, either PayPal or credit card. And of course, they can always mail a check in if they want to.
Okay. Anything else coming up that you have in the offing that you'd like us to know about at this point?
Well, I appreciate you asking. Yes, we're going to try to get Your Own Good Self in an interview with Nathan Ross Freeman and Corliss Sellers and the other members of the cast, perhaps every week to 10 days or so that people will have a chance to, preview what we have in mind. But really appreciate this opportunity with you and your willingness to help us out, Howard. Thanks very, very much.
Well, congratulations on keeping the company going in these difficult times, as it's difficult for all arts organizations. And best wishes to you and the 40 Plus Stage Company.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks again.